Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Laurentian Valley Council for October the 20th. It is our regular council meeting. We'll start off with the Lord's Prayer, and I do ask that you stay seating for the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Dean, roll call.
Mover, please, for the order.
Alan and Keith.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Watt, that the regular council meeting of October 20th, 2020 be called to order at 5:30.
All in favor? Carried.
Can I do the roll call too? Sorry, I should have did that first. I apologize. Mayor Bennett.
Present.
Reeve Robinson.
Present.
Councillor Gauthier.
Present.
Councillor Hughley.
Present.
Councillor Blow.
Present.
Councillor Watt.
Present.
And Councillor Wren.
Present.
All members are here, Your Worship.
Okay. Confirmation of the agenda.
Need a mover, please.
Chris, Brian.
Moved by Councillor Plow, second by Councillor Hughley, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of October 20th, 2020 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Declaration procuring interest.
I have received two, Your Worship, or sorry, I have received one with two items on it from Councillor Watt. So it says, I'll read it because he's not here. And so I remember Keith Watt is a member of the Township of Laurentian Valley Council, declare a pecuniary interest in the following items on the agenda for the regular meeting of October 20th, 2020. And it's 9AC, report motion Z 2020-08- rezoning of Councillor Watt, and 13C bylaw 2020-10-047 Z 2020-08 rezoning Watt. So at that point, this is kind of a first for us virtually. So Councillor Watt is going to kind of put himself out of the room. We're going to basically virtually move him out. And I believe he has a spokesperson that may comment on it. I'm not sure. But in that meantime, Councillor Watt will be out of the room and will not be hearing the discussion.
Okay. Minutes and notes.
I need a mover for the minute approval, please, from the council meeting.
Alan and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 15th, 2020 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried.
For the council and committee minutes, need a mover and a seconder for that one.
Chris and Keith.
Moved by Councillor Plow, second by Councillor Watt, that the minutes of the council and committee meeting held October 6, 2020 be accepted by council and that the resolutions of on that council become resolutions of council.
All in favor? Carried. Under delegations, we have Teresa from the president of the Renfrew County ATV Club.
Just going to confirm with Lori Dennis. Oh, there she is. Okay, sorry, she has come in. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Teresa.
Evening. Can we just, hello, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Very good. So perhaps you could confirm for me if you would like me to share the presentation from here or if your staff will be sharing the presentation from there.
I'm going to let that to Lori. Lori, do you, would you, I guess, Teresa, you know what? I think it's probably better that you do it and then you can turn the slides as you want. So if you can do that, certainly do that for sure. Please.
I'd be happy to do so. I just need Lori, if you could please enable participant sharing.
Sorry, just bear with me a moment.
Not a problem.
You should be able to now, Teresa.
Thank you. Great. So if you could just confirm that you do see the presentation for me, please.
We do.
Thank you. Wonderful. So good evening, and thank you very much for the time this evening to come before you, update you on what we're doing with Renfrew County, and be able to address a few questions or concerns in regards to recreational ATVing, what we're doing, and so forth. So as mentioned, my name is Teresa Hebb. I'm the current president for Renfrew County ATV Club. We have a new director for Pembroke and Laurentian Valley, and that is Lori Anderson. She's not with us on the call, but just to advise you that we do have now a new director representing your area. So we have a fair amount of information. Some of these slides, they were provided in advance, and so I may touch lightly on some of these so we can get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation and discussion. However, I do want to provide a bit of an update on what we've been up to since the last time we approached and came and had a conversation with you. First and foremost, as always, when it comes to recreational ATV and trail tourism, Renfrew County ATV very firmly believes in a 360-degree feedback, 360-degree partnership. So that means not only as a member of our federation, OFATV, but it also means partnering very strongly with both our riders, our volunteers, the industry, tourism, our landowners, and our trail users, whether they're motorized or non-motorized. Currently, the Ontario Federation represents 21 clubs. We have over 10,000 in annual membership, and that's within the Federation. And we have reciprocal agreements with a number of the provincial riding federations, including the province of Quebec. From an RCATV perspective, I'm happy to say that we are sitting at 1,024 kilometers of trail. So over half of the Ontario Federation trail footprint belongs here in Renfrew County. We are also a member of the Ontario Trails Council. We are governed by a board of 17, and we've been incorporated since 2007. Today, we're coming to you to not only provide you with an RCATV update, but also to discuss with you a land use agreement and discuss resident and landowner relations and a conversation in regards to the Algonquin Trail or Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail. For those of you who, I don't know if you're able to see me as well as the slide, but I apologize if I'm not face-to-face. I'm looking up at my other screen for our slides. So. An RCATV update. So let me let you know where we're at currently. So last time we visited, we had 118 annual members, of which 36% of our trail permits came from outside of Renfrew County. Here's where we are currently. So likely by this time next month, we will have met 1,000 annual members. So that means there are the riders who are purchasing an annual trail pass. Our trail passes are $150 for a year, and it's a calendar year, so a full 365 days. And I've also done a little bit of data analytics for you to let you know the makeup of who our annual membership represents. Certainly a significant portion here in Renfrew County, but be aware that we also have a number of riders who purchase a Renfrew County ATV trail pass, even though they don't live here locally, because this is the trail system they choose to support. So whether they are seasonal residents, whether this is just their destination of choice, we do have not only throughout Ontario, but also Quebec and the US. Here's been our pass since our last visit. So there are a number of things we've been working on. Every year within Renfrew County, we have a strategic or a specific intent that we work towards as a board from a governance perspective and involving our riders. So in the past several years, we've done a lot to redesign our trail system so that it's a more heritage feel to it and a historical feel to it. But on the governance side, we've also spent a significant amount of effort on a clean equipment protocol from a sustainability perspective, working as a stakeholder for the land that we travel on. We've introduced a technicality trail rating to make sure that our riders who are new to Renfrew County riding recreationally know before they get on a trail what type of trail they could anticipate. So imagine, if you will, much like a ski hill has different color coding to let skiers know before they start that descent. Likewise, we have the same thing. Our focus this year amongst a COVID environment has been on warden and patrol program and our rider and trail safety, given the fact that we have not been able to have as many events as we normally would to bring together our community. We've conducted a rider survey of our riders, and this was important to us. It was in response to a specific incident where we had some negative press in Lanark County, which really kind of showcased ATV riders as young rule breakers. And so we decided to do some demographics and present to our councils and our landowners who actually our ridership represents. So you can see from the survey, the age of our riders being in the average of 46 to 55 and plus, our rider family income, and also significantly important is how our riders like to ride, certainly a large number of groups and families on our trail system. The economics of ATV trail tourism, the information still hasn't been updated, although I can tell you that currently the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association has a large campaign. They are ready to launch on ATV recreational riding and motorized multi-use trail use. This is identified by the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association as one of their #1 priorities for tourism generation and to support our tourism operators. So we are partnering with them as a member of the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association to look at how we can continue to build Renfrew County as a primary destination in Ontario for recreational riding. So I'd like to move on to formalizing our partnership and talking a little bit about what that may look like. So first and foremost, it's important to understand that there are some differences in how the ATV recreational riding is funded in comparison with the snowmobile counterparts. So for Renfrew County, for ATVing in general in Ontario, we do not receive funding from the province. We do not have a partnership like the snowmobile clubs do, where they have a mandatory sticker, they have mandatory trail permit required, even on Crown land. And as a result, snowmobile club gets a significant percentage of that funding from the purchase of stickers back to individual clubs. We don't have that same luxury at this point. So our funding is really entirely based on our ability to show riders the value of purchasing a trail pass, especially given the high level of Crown land in our area. And it also is really strongly on our ability to write grants and partner with both our municipalities and other trail user groups to access funds. Why user pay is important, besides the funding model as our only funding source to be able to turn around and invest in the trail system, is that it also provides us with the ability to for $10 million in third-party liability insurance for our landowners, whether that's a municipality or a private landowner. It also enables us to continue to work on behalf of the landowners. So that could be for us working with our local OPP, bringing in the OPP SAVE team, which looks at snowmobile, ATV, and vessel enforcement. So they're a specialized OPP group that we bring out onto our trails. It also allows us to provide the funding and represent the landowner when we're talking about multi-use trail etiquette, and also for trail maintenance. It provides a partnership for trail maintenance so that we can continue to partner with our landowners. In 2020, I'm proud to say that Renfrew County ATV Club is forecasting $88,000 on our trail projects, which is 85,000% of our total revenue is spent directly on trail-related projects. I think this is what speaks volumes to not only the value and the integrity of our organization and the value that our volunteers are bringing to this, to ATV recreational tourism and for our local riders, but it also speaks a lot to why our membership is growing, because they see the value in supporting the trail system, and that means supporting Renfrew County ATV Club. So what is a land use agreement? I've provided a copy to your staff, to your CAO, so that he can take a look at it as well, and we can continue the conversation. Essentially what it does is a formalized agreement that we're asking for the Township of Laurentian Valley to enter into with Renfrew County ATV Club. And it essentially allows us to continue to sign and maintain and promote the trails within your area. It also will indicate which roads or routes we could indicate as an ATV route. So you'll see the sign on this slide, the ATV route sign. And although in Laurentian Valley, there's no or very limited prohibited roads for ATV use, by us indicating an ATV route or designating a road as an ATV route, it not only lets our road traffic know that the trail will be shared, or the road or route will be shared with ATVs, but it allows visiting riders to know how to get from one trail system to the other in the most safe manner and in a way that we are recommending as riders and in partnership with the municipality. The part of the land use agreement also includes an ATV trail permit required for municipal road allowances where we spend our permits and OFATV trail funds. It also provides a municipality with $10 million in liability insurance as a recreational trail. And so this will allow you to have that consistent trail coverage. So your winterized trails within Laurentian Valley are covered by your snowmobile club, and now your ATV club will partner with you to have that additional liability insurance during the riding season for ATVs. It also provides a strong partnership. We, as a not-for-profit, there's a number of grants, for example, the recent RED grant, the Rural Economic Development Grant, which is only available for organizations that have a regional impact versus a local municipal impact. And so our ability as a regional organization and not-for-profit allows us to continue to partner with our landowners with a more global perspective and access additional funds. Any opportunity we have to take $1 and turn it into 10 is always a good deal, not only for us as a not-for-profit, but also for our municipalities and townships. It comes with the OPP Safe team, as I mentioned. We also work with local enforcement, and we have our Renfrew County ATV Trail Wardening program, which I'm going to touch on in a little bit. And generally speaking, our land use agreements that we have with our municipalities is from 1st of May till the 1st of December, in which case we then hand over our trails and work very closely with the snowmobile clubs here in Renfrew County. So the trails within Laurentian Valley are here on the screen. All of our trails can be viewed at either map.renfrewcountyatv.ca. However, a land use agreement has been sent to staff, and so that includes an appendix or an addendum which speaks specifically to which routes and roads and which trail areas are we looking to enter into a formalized agreement with Laurentian Valley. I do want to touch on resident relationships. It's a significant part of certainly my role and my executive's role working with our residents, whether that's our other trail users, so walkers, cyclists, or whether that means also our residents who are living along the trail. So as you're likely aware, there has been a recent letter campaign come out from residents within Laurentian Valley that back onto the trail, the CN rail bed. If you haven't seen it, I do have a copy of it there. I was made aware of it earlier this week. So I did want to address a few points into it, and then certainly I'm sure this will come up in some conversation following the presentation. But just to clarify some of the points that are not quite as accurate in the letter from the resident, that the CN Trail is a private road. It is a private property owned by CN. Yes, we do have a lease. The Snow Country Snowmobile Region, which is the snowmobile club, leases it in the winter, and we have a sublease for it in the summer months from May 1st to 30th. The reason why this particular trail is a very important trail when we look at the greater scheme for recreational riding, not only for our residents, but also the tourism and economic benefits from our businesses, is the fact that it is the only link that provides for a continuous trail from Smith Falls all the way eventually to Mattawa. So currently, if that trail was not open, if we did not have that lease and maintain that lease, the trail would stop once it hits Laurentian Valley and not begin again until the other side of Pembroke. RCATV does not dissuade walking and cycling. I should mention just because it is mentioned in this letter from the resident. We have tried a number of times to speak with county and the city of Pembroke to purchase the CN, because we do, as not-for-profit organizations, fear that sections of this trail are going to be sold off, and it would be a grave shame for our county to lose this asset. And just to reiterate that we are a member and look forward to remaining an active member of the Laurentian Valley Recreational Committee, which hopefully will continue to address issues like this. So more specifically, when it comes to working with residents, I wanted to let you know what we've been up to all summer. So when it comes to dust suppression, is certainly one area that we try to work together with our residents and our riders, but for the most part, our residents. Over the year, we have moved, you can see from that larger circle where we had an ATV with a dry calcium chloride. That was our first year of application. It's what we used last year. This year, we then moved to the bottom image, which is liquid calcium. So based on some of the research we've done, talking with the county as well, we tried to look at how do we maximize the effectiveness of calcium chloride and dust suppression on the rail bed, the CN rail bed in the areas of Laurentian Valley where we have residents. So we moved up to a liquid calcium chloride. We then determined that was still not meeting our needs as to how we would like to see it applied. So we have since then, we now have a double system that spreads calcium chloride on our flatbed trailer, and we apply calcium chloride in a liquid form. So this year we've almost gone through 2 full skids, approximately 100 bags of dry calcium chloride. We have, as I mentioned, enhanced our application methods to go from a dry to a liquid application. And we do this in partnership with both the City of Pembroke and the Laurentian Valley Fire Department to provide us with access to water. We covered 3 distinct areas in Laurentian Valley. So we covered the area between Jean Avenue and Bruham Avenue. We also covered the area between the Indian River and Elgin Street behind Fairview Lane. And we covered the small portion between on the other side of Boundary Road in the city of Pembroke as well, where there's some residents step back on. So the Elgin Street area to Indian River, from the bridge over, on the other side of the bridge in the city of Pembroke, and then in Laurentian Valley from Jean Avenue to Bruham Avenue. And we've applied calcium chloride 4 times over the past 5 months. Some of the other things that we've done to address and support our residents, besides the dust suppression, is the work that we continue to do as volunteers on bridges and roadways. So whether that's responding to calls or questions or concerns about aggregate building up, especially in the spring, I find once we've had the snowmobile groomers and the snowmobiles that will tend to bring aggregate up onto the bridge. So the volunteers will be removing that so that it doesn't interfere not only with people using the bridge, but it also doesn't cause any concerns for residents as well as for any traffic below the bridge. We've removed a significant amount, I think almost 3 tons of metal this summer from the rail bed. We've adjusted when we do calcium chloride. We had received a request from a resident to please make posts up on it so that the dog walkers and pedestrians will be aware that that there has been a calcium chloride treatment on the trail. So we do that as well. And then most recently, we've installed barricades in the Elgin Street area. Elgin Street in particular has had significant amount of concerns about for the most part, young riders who are riding down Elgin Street would access the rail bed and into Nadine's Bush, which for decades has been a go-to place for riding, certainly well before we have stepped in as Renfrew County ATV. But it does make it difficult when we work with our local OPP and our SAVE team, but more importantly, our local OPP. They do find it challenging to address some of the concerns for ATV riders on accessing Elgin Street to that private property called Nadine's Bush. because what happens is they'll go down the rail bed, then they'll use all these little offshoots into the private property, and the OPP just are not able to follow them when they're not on an ATV. So I'm talking about our local OPP in Upper Ottawa Valley. So we've installed barricades. As much as some of our riders are not happy with that because they used the rail bed with the trail pass to access the private property, the fact is it was causing trespassing issues and causing issues for residents, and this enables our OPP to better address some of the concerns that are being raised by residents. So over $8,000 this year has been spent on the Laurentian Valley trails and the rail bed commitments in Laurentian Valley. That does not include the $30,000 that we spend on grading. That $8,000 is really just being spent on resident concerns that are impacting our residents to try to work as part of our community. I did want to touch a little bit on some safety, make sure that as council members, you're aware of what the safety requirements, whether that's speed and sound, are for ATVs. It's oftentimes the type of thing that gets sent out, about sound and speed. So we're trying to address it as accurately as we can. So for the first point, in regards to speed, the roads, as far as municipal legislation here in Ontario, when an ATV is riding on a road, it's 20 kilometers an hour when it's a 50 kilometer zone, and 50 kilometers an hour if it is above 50 kilometers. So if it's in an 80 zone, an ATV cannot drive any more than 50 kilometers on a road. If it's a 50 kilometer or below, 50 kilometers or below, they can only drive at 20 kilometers as a maximum speed. They also are posted in accordance with the bylaws on a trail. So on a trail, the Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail, for example, has a bylaw in place that indicates the speeds, in which case the OPP can enforce it. And on the Algonquin Trail, rurally it's 50 kilometers, and urban in the built-up areas, it's 20 kilometers. For the CN rail bed, which although is private property and not part of the Algonquin Trail, we have a posted speed of 20 kilometers an hour, and we're actually working on a few other additional things that we can do to try to help enforce that speed, besides having our OPP safe team and our local OPP on the trail with our wardens. But we are looking at maybe some, either the much larger 20 kilometer an hour speeds, having those 20 kilometer an hour speeds set much earlier in the trail system, so even before they approach residential areas. We've looked at a number of different ways that we can what's called choke the trail, which slows the trail down, where riders have to now weave around obstacles or things that would be put in place to necessarily slow traffic down, to make sure that they're abiding by that 20 kilometers an hour. When it comes to sound, so I've indicated for you here a couple of other comparables so that you can put some perspective at what an ATV sound as far as a decibel level would be in relation to some of the other more commonly heard sounds. So whether that's heavy traffic, air conditioners, noisy restaurants, power lawn mowers, motorcycles, chainsaw leaf blowers, and snowmobiles. So I just wanted to provide you with a little bit of facts and figures to try to help inform you on what is out there for speed and sound when it comes to ATV recreational riding. And certainly the 80 to 82 decibels is not at that 20 kilometers speed. That's at our riding speed. The other thing we've been trying to address is access. I mentioned earlier with the barricades that we've been putting up, the concern we have with trespassing on the CN rail bed oftentimes comes from smaller offshoots of private property. So when it comes to trespassing, our best way to deal with trespassing is making sure that we have designated locations for people to ride. So that also means adequate signage. It means that we have trail gating in place to keep trucks and larger vehicles off the trail. It also means for us purposely looking for trails that we can create connected trail systems. So if a rider sees on a map a connected trail system and a suggested route, then that's the route they're going to take, and that will help keep people from trespassing on private property. Oftentimes when it comes to our Crown land trails, if an individual just sees trails, they don't know, unless they're very familiar with that section of Crown land, whether they have now trespassed onto private property or not. So our best way to combat that is to make sure that we're providing adequate signage and letting people know what is a designated trail route. On the Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail, the bylaw for ATVs on the Algonquin Trail is from May 1st to November 30th to coincide with the rest of our trail system. And the hours of use, incidentally, are from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. I'll finish off with points on supporting your support to the Algonquin Trail. This has been a continuing conversation that we've had over the years. And so it's our opportunity to let you know, here's what we've done thus far and how we are continuing to support the Algonquin Trail. I mentioned the grading. We actually own a grader now. It was donated by the county that Renfrew County ATV and Snow Country own jointly. And we spent, so far this year, we've spent actually about $32,000 in grading. We've spent $3,000 in gating on the Algonquin Trail. I mentioned the metal, the significant amount of metal that's been removed off of the rail beds. We've done a fairly large amount of trail surface repairs, so things like culverts and washouts, etc. We've invested in signage, so this is signage that will go along the Algonquin Trail from top to bottom, letting people know it's a multi-use trail, encouraging people to stay on trail, and making sure that as an ATV rider, they know what time of year they can be on the trail. And hopefully this will help make it a little easier for not only our OPP, but for our residents who have concerns when they see ATVs on the trail in the spring before the season actually opens. To date, we've done 5 OPP patrols just on this Algonquin Trail. And by saying so, this really is for the most part since July, when our trail warden program stood up. We did have a few in the spring as well, and we have over 1,000 hours of wardening. We did, much like your Laurentian Valley survey that was sent out last year to residents, we also did a rider support pledge for riders, and where we have currently 642. We actually did this last year, so we haven't continued it, but at the time when we brought it to a close, we had 642 ATV owners living in or visiting Renfrew County trails, taking a pledge for responsible riding. And when we asked them to identify, of the 14 trail etiquette statements, which ones were their top 5, you can see them listed there about trespassing, posted speeds, certainly consumption, and sharing the trails. To touch on our warden program, we have 3 pillars in our warden program. Ambassadorship is our strongest and most critical piece. It allows us to continue to have conversations, be available and accessible to residents. It allows us to talk to riders, make them know where they are, see if they have any questions about the trail, if they're looking for recommendations on where to stay, where for fuel, etc., and just provides that trail presence to try to dissuade the type of activity that we don't want to see on the trail. On top of that, we also provide rider safety stops, and we provide permit enforcement stops where it's part of the permit compliance as a landowner requirement. Excuse me. As part of the Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail and encouragement to continue to see the Algonquin Trail through Laurentian Valley in the city of Pembroke, we've worked very closely with a number of business owners. I know that has picked up yet again, and I believe there's a delegation going on behalf of businesses going to the city of Pembroke Business Development Group, I believe this week. And so that's the information I wanted to present to you, because I did want to leave a significant amount of time to be able to answer your questions specifically in regards to whether it's the land use agreement, whether it's in regards to residents and how we continue to try to partner with our community. But essentially, as a conclusion, we are looking to finalize the land use agreement with Laurentian Valley. It is certainly our last large municipality without a land use agreement. We'd like to confirm our ATV route signage locate. So based on that land use agreement, to work with council, work with your staff to look at where is the best place for us to put those ATV route designation signs. We're looking for your support to help us maintain resident and landowner relations. So that means opportunities in newsletters, posts that can be shared on social media, etc., and opportunities to help maintain an open discussion with residents within our capacity. Again, we are a entirely not-for-profit. I think as a not-for-profit group representing 1,000 riders and with a budget of just over 100,000, we've done a significant amount of work, I think, as an organization to keep Renfrew County as a top destination here. It also means, though, that we need to continue to have that partnership with our municipalities to help enable us to continue to do so on behalf of their businesses and their riders. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to hand this back to you as chair and address any questions or concerns.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm just going to get this off our screen. There we go. Questions for Teresa? Again, thanks, Teresa, for that presentation. Very in-depth, very informative. We'll start with Chris.
Hi, Teresa. It's good to see you looking so well, and I hope you're feeling better.
I am.
I just had a couple questions from residents this week. Are walkers and cross-country skiers and those type of people allowed on the CN portion of the trail?
I can't speak to cross-country skiers because that would be within the snowmobile and the snow country. So Terry Vaudry would be able to provide a hand on heart on that one. But I can tell you during the summer months, we never dissuade cyclists, dog walkers, pedestrians using our trails. We are very much a multi-use trail system as an organization, and the majority of our trails are multi-use. The only ones that are not would be the Algonquin Trail has some restrictions, but for that trail in the Laurentian Valley, it is entirely accessible. I think if we were to see damage being done, we would obviously have to address it on behalf of the landowner, but CN at this point has not given us any indication that we need to prohibit access.
Yeah, sorry, I meant cyclists and walkers. Anyway, and my last question would be, how many kilometers do you think it would take to pave the built-up areas only in the Laurentian Valley or recycled asphalt, and is that a suitable surface?
So it's a really good conversation, and I'm glad you brought it forward. We actually spent a fair amount of research this year looking at doing that, and we were ready to actually pull the trigger last week on recycled asphalt. We've been working with H&H Construction, who generously provided their recycled asphalt. They were willing to provide some services, their trucks, and we were going to provide our volunteers, pay for rollers, et cetera, et cetera. We costed out the cost it was going to cost us to be able to do the section behind in the 3rd Ave, so 3rd Avenue to Jean Avenue, which is where there's residents on that side, to do the section from Indian River to Elgin Street, and to be able to do from Elgin Street to the bridge. It was going to cost us probably about $18,000. However, in speaking with H&H Construction and a few other of our, we have a new director that does maintenance for us who comes with a significant amount of experience in the construction and road industry. And in talking with the county on their pilot project that they did in Armprior, it was deemed that it would probably not address the issue of dust. And the reason why is because that rail bed is slag. So it's large, chunky iron ore. And so it does not provide an ideal surface for recycled asphalt to adhere to it. Because it's owned by CN, we cannot remove that slag. So we have, while we grade it, we try to manage the slag. So we will try to roll it to the sides. We cannot roll it over the trail because it now would present an environmental issue. So we try to manage the slag that's on the trail. However, considering the fact that the slag is there, in some areas it's quite thick, considering the fact that the asphalt, recycled asphalt, does not have enough or has too much fines in it, so sand and smaller particulate, it doesn't allow it to bind as effectively as possible. So we were prepared. We had set aside $12,000 this year to do the section between Indian River and Elgin Street as a pilot. But we decided actually just 2 weeks ago to, based on the consultation with H&H and consultation with some road construction engineers, that it's probably not going to achieve what we're hoping it will achieve. and to try to put it on hold, do the further research over the off season to come back with hopefully another plan. The other consideration was that by putting a paved surface, the snowmobile club, not ideal. Of course, they don't want a black top because it means snow melts, but they were willing to do it because they recognize this is a strong point for us to be able to address resident concerns. And so they were willing to do so. But when we talked to the county about their pilot in Arnprior, they found that while in that section, of course, they don't have the slag, so they had a nice hard packed surface, they could remove that slag. While it has reduced the amount of dust suppression, the cyclists don't like it because now it's a hard, bumpy trail instead of a soft trail that will move with them. It also will not, if it's in the Laurentian Valley area, it will not necessarily address speed. We would now have to, and our plan was asphalt, recycled asphalt, and then on top of that, provide some other types of ways to choke the trail. Because once you have a nice asphalt flat surface, now what we're gonna have to address is speed of people going too quickly, because now the regular terrain of the trail will not naturally slow them down. So that's where we're standing currently. We continue to be open to conversations and discussion, working with road engineers to try to find the right solution.
Thank you, Teresa.
Keith, I believe you're next. Keith, you unmute.
Sorry. Thank you, Teresa, for your presentation. Very informative. Your working relationship with the residents in some areas, as you know that this past summer there were some dust issues and whatever. Is there a formalized process that you would rather see residents contact somebody in regards to the trail and dust conditions or whatever, regarding speed, maybe times when certain machines or whatever are maybe speeding for indication as to when to patrol or whatever? Just looking for something like that, whether the residents can make contact with who, so on and so forth.
Thank you. And so via the chair, we have, so currently the residents will contact me on my personal cell phone. They know how to reach me, and I certainly welcome those conversations. So currently the process is through me. We also have opened our board meetings where we've had a number of residents, Stan and Sandy Brazo, for example. We had invited them to a board meeting to certainly feel welcome to attend. Our board meetings are public and open to riders and our community, that they could address it as well. In regards to some of the speed issues, though, Keith, I could tell you that whenever we get an indication from residents, so maybe it's in particular the Elgin Street area, I should say, it tends to be heavier in that after school period of time, evenings, again, heading to that Nadine's Bush. So what we've done to address it is we have been shifting we just had the OPP, in fact, up on Friday evening. The OPP Save team spent Friday evening from 3 till 9 p.m. with our wardens in that specific area, in which case they did address a number of open alcohol concerns. They had some helmet concerns. In the past, we've also been able to stop where a resident has expressed that there's a time of day that somebody's using it to go back and forth to work or back and forth to school. We will have our OPP or our OPP Safe team target that particular time frame. So, you know, we've been able to cut down on the number of ATVs without a driver's license, with no license, no plates. So we try to respond based on where the need is. And currently the forum, the way that we're getting that information, if it doesn't come from yourselves as council members, it does come directly to me. I would be more than happy to, you know, I've offered in the past, certainly the Burns Drive, for example, I have offered over the years to Burns Drive. I would love to be able to sit down and have a town hall or a coffee conversation with them. Anytime we are doing a co-delegation to the city of Pembroke or to the county, I've always extended that offer. Let's sit down first and foremost, so that when they bring issues forward, they're factual issues, because it doesn't help if the issues they bring forward are not accurate or factual. So at least let me give them the right information when they're going forward, but then to be able to have that conversation. Unfortunately, I have never been taken up on my offer, but if that's something that that council would like to help me and enable me, I would be more than happy to have that conversation with residents to continue to find a way to work together with our community.
Thank you.
Alan, please.
So I noticed in your presentation, you had said that you'd had the OPP special group out with you on the trails. And I'm wondering, is there a cost to the club for that? Number one. Number two, is it possible for our municipality to ask the OPP to do more enforcement where the trail crosses certain roads? So if we're worried about speeding, and I know they do it with the snowmobiles at some point, is that something that the municipality could request the OPP to spend more time at certain areas to do radar enforcement on the trail?
Thank you very much. And so through the chair, so when it comes to OPP Safe Team, so the Safe Team is a specialized team out of Tweed. They have all of Eastern Ontario. We invite them up because they are specialized. They do have the ATVs, and it allows them to also become more familiar with our trail system. So we partner oftentimes a minimum of 2 of our wardens with 2 of their OPP. We are the ambassadors on the trail. We can answer the questions once they do have stops to answer questions about the trail system and the area. We have tried to work out with our local OPP, and we do have great relationships with them. It's a matter of capacity. The OPP Safe Team, we do not pay for. It is a part of their mandate and their service. And so we request that they come up. We often will extend an invite to make it over a few days, etc. And for the most part, they've been exceptional at coming up at our request. When it comes to our local OPP, the way that we've leveraged our local OPP is, I can give an example that did occur actually in the Elgin Street area, where our wardens came across some young adults on their ATVs who did not stop for them, but based on the way that they were riding, the recklessness of the riding, when one did slow down, they recognized that the passenger had no helmet and that there was a significant, whether it was alcohol or drug use, it was noticed. So what our wardens do is they took a photo of the license plate. They contacted our OPP immediately right away in the city of Pembroke, who was at the person's residence by the time they got to the trail. By the time they got home, the OPP was there ready for them, and subsequently was charged and went through the court process. When we've approached the OPP in other areas, and I know Elgin Street in particular, residents have asked OPP to support. And unfortunately, the response oftentimes is because they don't have their own ATV team. So yes, they do own an ATV within the OPP, and some of them are trained, not many. But what happens is a resident will call about ATVs. OPP tries to address it on Elgin Street, and they just bugger off into the bush. And the OPP are now unable to address it. And they certainly are not going to go into a pursuit or a chase with an ATV on a road. But at your request, yes, you can not only through us or directly request that the OPP Save Team come down, or to request that the OPP within the city of Pembroke and Ottawa Valley do set up positions either on road. We would also be happy to take anybody along as a ride along with us. We've offered this with the counties, for example, bylaw officers, to bring a bylaw officer with us on the trail who then has enforcement power where we do not.
Great, thank you.
Debbie.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And Teresa, very nice to see you again. Always enjoy your presentation and the passion you obviously have for ATVing. So, and you do look well, so very good to see you.
Thank you.
Certainly, the main issue that I hear about obviously is the dust and the dirt that the residents are experiencing. And then, and I've gone to some of their homes, and they are pretty close to the trail, and I understand that. So I'm really pleased that over the winter that your club will be trying to figure out some options to reduce the dust. I don't know if it's just, regular suppressant put on there. I have no idea, but I think that again, if you thought about paving, I really do believe you're just trading one problem for another. Less dust. Now the speeding is occurring. Correct. But of interest, I was at a meeting last week where Inspector Neufeld from the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP was there. Yes. We were talking about trail enforcement, and it's a capacity issue for our local OPP detachments. But saying that, he did assure me that he would take it back and take a look at the potential of having some kind of trail enforcement team. But the bottom line is it's going to cost money, and that money is likely going to would have to likely come from municipalities. So definitely an issue. The money, we'll be talking tonight about our OPP costs, and I don't think any of us really want to see them go up any higher. But it definitely is an issue. So again, I'm very glad that you're aware of the resident concerns, and your offer to meet with people, I think, is very important, and hopefully they will take you up on it.
Thank you very much. Some of the other things we've considered, in fact, are things like, do we want to, because we've heard about an increase in riders. So it's very hard for us to say, okay, what is that increase? It's very easy for an exaggeration to happen, to say, oh, there's hundreds and hundreds of riders every day, all day, all night. So one of the things we had considered was whether or not there's a partnership where we could put something that actually counts riders over a period of time. So the more facts we have, the easier we can come up with a suitable solution. But it's hard to find solutions if we're just kind of making those solutions based on unknown amounts. So things like how many are we actually talking about? What times of day are the busiest? Even things like, you would know as council whether or not things like having the speed signs that tell you how fast you're actually going have been effective on roads. And if it's been effective in your experience on roads, that might be something we could maybe take to a trail for a period of time as part of a larger campaign on reducing speed and being more compliant within residential areas.
Okay, Brian.
I guess my question is, when the Algonquin Trail and that was initially sold or built, it was for everybody, non-motorized and motorized combined, and it seems to be moving more and more to solely motorized, where the skidoo trails don't like skiers on the trails, and I'm sure horseback riding or cyclists or joggers aren't real keen on ATVs whipping by them either. And that's kind of my concern, is that the active living part of living in the Ottawa Valley is a big part of it. And with, 1,024 kilometers of trails, is there some place in there for the non-motorized folks as well?
Thank you. And so through the chair, I can tell you that I can only speak to our season. I can't speak to the winter side because they have a different legislation as a prescribed trail. But for us, our trails are multi-use. We actually work quite closely, and we do a lot of education on sharing trails with horseback. We have a number of our, especially for example, Whitewater Road, where we have a lot of horseback. We also have a lot of horseback in areas closer to Indian Station and in Barry's Bay Area. So we actually do a fair amount of work with horseback. Likewise on our B Trail in Whitewater with the horse camping program out there. And then the other thing that we do is we work very closely with Ron Moss and the Ottawa Valley Active Cycling Team to try to ensure, so they will several times a year, this year being a little different, but normally they would provide us with a schedule of when they're doing cycling events. And likewise, we provide the same for ATVing events, so we can inform both of our riders if there's going to be a heavier than normal presence. And then when they're doing a cycling event, they contact us, and we actually will do road traffic for them, or we'll do safety runs for them. So we incorporate some of our ATV riders for their cycling events, so that if they need rapid response or runners or stopping traffic or whatever the case is, we work together on them. So from our perspective, our trails are all entirely multi-use, and we strongly work on that trail etiquette to make sure ATV riders know how to approach when a horse is on the trail, how to share the trail with multi-use and non-motorized. Now, obviously, not all ATV owner in Renfrew County is a member of Renfrew County ATV Club. So our audience and our ability to influence behaviors outside of those who are purchasing permits and probably for the most part responsible riders, it makes it a little bit harder to do so. Of the Algonquin Trail in particular, there's no permit required on the Algonquin Trail. It is public. And even though we have a lease for the Algonquin Trail, we don't really have the capacity to ensure that every ATV rider on that trail understands trail etiquette, other than what we do through our social media campaigns. We have about 7,000 that follow us on our social media. But again, we don't represent obviously every single rider, but we certainly do our best.
Okay, Brian. Thanks, Teresa. Just a couple of questions for you first. I know Council, through their questions tonight, have addressed some of my concerns. And again, as Reeve Robinson has said, and Keith, the biggest concern is the residents and the dust suppression. And I'm glad to hear that you are going to work on that through the winter, because that's the number one complaint or phone call that I get. And I have passed on some of the emails to you. Clarification, in your presentation, you have over 100 warden hours, but you said 1,000 while you're speaking. Is it 100 or 1,000 warden hours that you have?
No, 100 warden hours.
100, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The other, and I know you've brought forward tonight the land use agreement, and Dean and staff will work with you on that. The other question that I have for you, that if you would work out with Dean and Mark as well, that council a couple of years ago when the Algonquin Trail was formalized, that each municipality was allowed an option to create a bypass through Laurentian Valley and downtown city of Pembroke. We have done a lot of work on the snowmobile side, but we haven't with the ATV, knowing that the ATV would be possibly an easier solution to create a bypass. Not to say that council wants a bypass, but we did tell our ratepayers that we would attempt to look at that possibility. So that's something that I'm going to ask if you would work with our staff to see with your club and with our staff, that is, if there is a possibility, and if there is, then that could be brought back to our council to make that decision. So I would appreciate if your club could do that for us, probably sooner than later, in the next couple of months. But certainly you've grown very much since you first came to us, and I think you guys are doing a great job. You're obviously going to have the growing pains, and the residents' issues are the biggest part of that, I think. So if we can continue, as Keith had asked you earlier, to keep an open dialogue and work with the residents as much as you can, to make sure that your survival is good and you can continue to grow.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Mark?
I guess my questions are more moving away from the Algonquin Trail and the CN, and more towards the memorandum of understanding that was presented, and more the use of township roads that are maintained and seasonal roads. And reading through the agreement, and I did receive it this morning, it seems that the agreement is more related to private lands and not to municipal roadways. It talks about, the ATV club being responsible for maintenance, but if they're township roads, either maintained seasonally or year round, that maintenance falls under the municipality. And talks about permitting and such, and in Laurentian Valley there's no permits required to drive on any municipal road under our jurisdiction. So I'm not sure if other municipalities have signed this exact agreement, or if there's something different that maybe pertains a little more to a municipality, and I again, as the mayor's note, is something that maybe we can work on, but I don't know if this is the the right agreement for the municipal road portion of it, and maybe something that we could work on and come back to council with.
Certainly, and so I can tell you the land use agreement is the same with all of our municipalities. The piece that we've added in for your municipality and that we've added in for Madawaska Valley, anticipating concerns from residents, and is the fact that we've added the one line in there that indicates that it's for recreational use. Now, trail permits, I'll speak to first. Trail permits obviously are not required on a road. We're not looking for trail permits on a road at all. We're talking about really those unopened road allowances, areas that we might need to access to be able to get to Crown land as part of our trail system. And the way that this makes it a little easier from the rider, if I could speak to a rider's perspective, is it's very challenging from a rider's perspective to know where do they need a trail pass and where do they not need a trail pass. And so thus far, it has made it a lot easier for our riders if they don't have to worry about a trail that starts as public, goes to private, goes to public. And when I say private, I'm including our recognition of that hybrid of it is public land, but as a municipal landowner, I'm talking about versus Crown land. So it does make it easier for riders to know that where they can ride and where they cannot ride. Currently on Crown land, we do not require a trail permit. On the Algonquin Trail, they do not require a trail permit north of Arnprior. They do south of Arnprior. They do in the city of Pembroke. So again, it just makes it a little challenging for riders to know where they do and don't. So for the most part, they're choosing to purchase a trail pass to support the club regardless. When it comes to maintenance with our municipalities, and especially those municipalities that don't have their own rail beds or trail, they for the most part are unopened road allowances. So Kiloo, Haggerty, Richards, Bonnechere Valley, North Algona, Wilberforce, yourselves, where they are Greater Madawaska would be another example. They don't really have trail. It's more unopened road allowances that we have, or the ability for us to put ATV designated sign on a road. The maintenance level that we would do on a unopened road allowance is essentially to help make sure that it is going to be safe for recreational riding. So that means regular brushing, it means signage, if it means our riders who are out there identify a significant hazard. We have partnered with some municipalities for things like culvert repair, or if there's additional aggregate required, or if it means taking care of where rock has moved onto the road instead of where it belongs on a trail. So those are some of the things that we've done, but certainly the level of our capacity to maintain depends, on the type of trail surface. When it comes to a road, we're obviously not going to be maintaining the roads and maintaining the unopened road allowances beyond the extent of our ability to do so for safe recreational riding. So we would make sure it's brushed sufficiently, the signage is there, addressing trees that may come across trails, et cetera, when it comes to so if I use the example of Station Hill, or the example of the end of Forsley Road, or Colby Lake Road as it starts heading back into the bush. Those are areas that our club, as part of a land use agreement, would continue to maintain on your behalf.
Okay, I think something we'll have to discuss a little bit further. The seasonal roads and the unopened road allowances we treat them a little bit differently. So I think something maybe if we can get a meeting in the next couple of weeks just to figure out where to go and be in a better place for 2021.
Absolutely.
Anything further for any questions for Teresa? Seeing none, Teresa, again, thank you very much. I'll have Dean contact you, and you and him and Mark can start the discussions on what you're asking for on the land use agreement, and also to look at a possible alternative route. So again, thank you very much. Great presentation. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay. Okay. We'll take 5 minutes, folks, and then we'll be back. Charlene?
I guess one thing I'm just going to bring up with regards to my report, I meant to add it on, I didn't. Obviously, we've made a decision from here, staff member, I'm just going to report to council unless they have a different opinion. But I guess, unfortunately, our Christmas party, which we normally do for our volunteers towards the end of November, early December, we are going to put obviously a pass on that this year too as well and cancel it, unfortunately, because of the grouping sizes and that. So we'll try and figure something out for council to thank our volunteers for the year. We're just going to work on that, and we'll report back at some point a little later to see what we could possibly do for them. I know it's certainly a different year and it's unfortunate, but it's just a sign of the times. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So
Jennifer.
I agree. I think everyone gets it though with these times.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just we'll do something. There's we do have some service awards that we'll do from the volunteer standpoint and staff standpoint, so we'll bring them into a meeting, get that done as well. It's just the actual social function that we can't have, and we'll try and do something else.
Okay, treasurer's report. Any questions for Charlene? Okay, there's none. Public Works. I'm sorry, Keith, do you have your hand up? Keith? Oh, Keith froze.
Oh, he's frozen.
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Charlene made one. He intended that the question was a municipality responsible for an outbreak? And I was just curious as to the response to that one.
I knew there was going to be a question on that. Yes, so they do say that we could possibly be responsible if the outbreak obviously occurs within our office, and that we haven't taken all precautions as with any other business. All your precautions have to be taken, and I think we're taking as many precautions as we can at this time. So it would be a hard sell to say that we weren't following all the precautions, and somebody can sue us, but it was an interesting conversation webinar with them. I do have the slides, I believe, if anybody wants to take a look at them.
So one point further, Charlene, is that the library was visited by the health unit to make sure that they were following all the protocols. Now it's different there because it's open as well to the public, but so is the township to a point. Have you had a visit at all there in that respect?
We've had some people come into the office to pay their taxes and all that. And anybody that comes beyond the barriers has to sign an essential visitor, fill out the form the same as an employee does every day, the screening form, to state that they have not got any of the symptoms and they haven't been out of the country and they haven't been around anybody, and they put their name and date and telephone number in the event that there is something that goes on. So anybody that goes beyond the screen has to sign in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Charlene? Seeing none, go down to Public Works. Anything for Mark? Okay, planners for Lori. Brian?
I just had one question for Mark. We seem to take a lot of questions all the time about ditching, and I'm just wondering if that's all been completed and ready for the spring at this point. There was quite a lengthy list of ditches with problems and challenges.
Yeah, so I say from what we've been made aware of earlier in the year, they've either been addressed or just finishing up. There's some work in off the drive-in road area that a contractor is completing. If they haven't started, will be soon. We have the remainder of the section from Eldorado Crescent to finish up. But Rivercrest and Cathmay and some of the other ones that had come up earlier in the year, they're all addressed, completed, and cleaned up and functioning well.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to do the same thing, Brian. Mark, can you give us a status on Golf Course Road and the one down
Sullivan Point?
Sullivan Point.
Yes, so Golf Course Road, it's moving along well. There were some extra days added because of some additional work and some changes. The first lift of asphalt, I believe, went on Thursday or Friday last week. We have our biweekly meeting tomorrow morning to get an update, but it is to be completed by the end of October. So it's, I think it'll be done a little bit before that. It's almost complete. Sullivan Point is scheduled to be paved the middle of next week. It's ready to go. And we're working at Forest Park Road, and it'll be paved at the same time as Sullivan Point as the middle of next week. So they'll by the end of next week, both of those projects will be completed and wrapped up.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, Laurie. Any questions for Laurie? Or anything you want to update, Laurie? No. Okay. Mayor's report. You will see in there that we will be halfway through our term come November, so I will be contacting each of you just to sit down and have a little chat on how council's been going through this term and any comments or suggestions you might have. So beginning in November, I will contact you and we'll set up a time to do that.
A mover and a seconder. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
Mover and a seconder. Brian and Alan.
Moved by Councillor Ugly, second by Councillor Wren, that the council receive the following reports from mid-September to mid-October at the regular council meeting of October 20th, 2020. CAO's report, Treasurer's report, Public Works Manager's report, Planner, EDOC, CMC report, and Mayor's report.
All in favor? Carried. Go ahead. Public meeting.
Need a mover and a seconder to open it.
Jennifer and Chris.
Moved by Councillor Gauthier, second by Councillor Plow, that the Council of Township of Laurentian Valley, pursuant to section 17, 22, and 34 of the Planning Act, hereby declared a public meeting open at 6:50 p.m. to discuss application for official plan amendment OPA number 15, file number 02020 and -02, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z 2020-09 Shimmons, and the application for zoning bylaw amendment file number Z 2020-08 Watt.
All in favor? Good. Laurie, please.
Okay, so just to start off, again, to provide a bit of a background for people on how to participate, we will be dealing with two different applications tonight, or two different files with three applications together between them. And as we progress through, we will have a point where the comments will be opened up for the ability for members of the public who are listening in to be able to participate. So just to be aware that there will be that opportunity for anybody who is an attendee. If they are participating on a computer, they'll be able to raise their hand through the Zoom app. And if they are on a phone in, they're able to raise their hand by a *9, and we will get to them before we finish and move on to the next item. So in terms of the first item that's before us, this is a combined application of both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. And those are files O2020-02 and Z 2020-09 Shimmons. And so the application's notice was also put out to be a combined notice of application as well as public meeting, and all were issued in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. So the purpose of the official plan amendment, which is official plan amendment number 15, is to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling on the subject lands and remove a portion of the aggregate designation where there is little capability for extraction, and that was demonstrated through an aggregate resource impact assessment report that was submitted in support of the application. So the effect of the official plan amendment is to redesignate that portion from mineral aggregate resource to rural. And again, there's a concurrent application for zoning bylaw amendment that would also deal with that same land area. And so with the zoning bylaw amendment, again, it's to rezone from extractive industrial reserve, EMR, to rural exception 79, RUE 79. And this permits the single detached dwelling also with a reduced minimum setback land zoned EMR on abutting properties. And these have a few different measurements. So they're as follows. So there'd be a minimum of a 35-meter setback from lands that are in Part Lot 15, Concession 11 Alice, and a minimum setback of 100 meters from lands in Part Lot 15, Concession 12 Alice. And then it also would set up a reciprocal, a general provision that would permit a gravel pit on those other properties to locate within those meters specified as well when there's the RUE 79 zones. So they're given the same benefit of that. They would still, if they were to license, have to go through the aggregate process, but they are given that reciprocal benefit. And again, these lands are located on Rands Road, and they're within Part Lot 15, Concession 12, in the geographic Township of Alice in the Township of Laurentian Valley. So with this process, again, it is open to the public, and this is the opportunity to make any comments if they have not been provided in writing beforehand. It's the opportunity to make verbal comments, because if you do not do that, then you may not be able to file an appeal with the local planning appeal tribunal if you did not agree with the decision of council related to the zoning bylaw amendment. With the official plan amendment, council would adopt the bylaw if they are in support, but then it would also be forwarded to the County of Renfrew, which is the approval authority for the official plan amendment. And again, just as a reminder for anybody who is listening in, should they be participating, that it is a public process, and therefore their name and their information becomes part of the public record and can be shared with anyone that the township feels appropriate as part of the planning process on this application. To this point, we have not received any comments from neighbors or public agencies that would have any impact related to the recommendation on the files. There's been nothing that's actually been submitted.
Okay. So I have a motion. Any questions to council? Pardon me? Does anyone want to speak for or against? I think Laura said there's nobody on there.
Okay, so in terms of attendees, we do have Matt Shimmons, who is the applicant and property owner. He is on the line should there be any questions beyond what I would be responding to.
Thank you, Matthew, for being on the line. Council have any questions? I don't believe so. It's
okay, need a mover and a seconder.
Debbie and Alan.
So moved by Reeve Robinson, second by Councillor Wren, that the council approve application for zoning bylaw amendment OPA number 15, file number 02020-02, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z 2020-09 Shimmons, and forward bylaws 2020-10-045 and 2020-10-046 as presented to the bylaw section of the regular council meeting of the October 20th, 2020 for enactment.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Matthew. Move on to the second one, Laurie.
I guess before we start, I guess I'm going to ask for Laurie Dennis to confirm that Councillor Watt is going to leave the room. Can you just confirm to us when he's exited the room, please?
I confirm now that Councillor Watt is now put on hold and is not participating at this point in the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Laurie, go ahead.
Okay, so the application that's now before us is an application for zoning bylaw amendment. It's file number Z 2020-08. Again, this was issued as a combined notice of the application as well as a notice of the public meeting. Same comments as before, that if there's anybody that's on the line that wishes to speak before or against the application, that this is their opportunity if they have not provided written comments previously, that this is the method to preserve rights of appeal with the local planning appeal tribunal should they not agree with the decision of council on this file. So in terms of the details of the application, it's to permit the construction of a residential dwelling on a corner lot that would be closer to an exterior side lot line, which in this case would be Boucher Street, closer than 6 meters. So the effect of the amendment is establishing a residential 1 exception 40 zone with a special provision that provides for a minimum exterior side yard width for that residential dwelling of 3.8 meters. So the subject property would then also be rezoned to this exception zone that's being set up. And so it's located at the corner of Boucher Street and Lark Street, and it's lot 93 in Judge's Plan 402 within Part Lot 31, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Stafford. So again, in terms of any comments that are made, it does form part of the public record, and your name and that being provided as well is your consent that we do that and share that information. Again, we did not receive any calls or comments on this application from the public, and we do have Carolyn Watt on the line should there be a question, a nature of a question that's raised that I'm not able to answer and that you would like the applicant to answer.
Hi, Carolyn. Welcome to council. Any questions of council? Okay, seeing none. Gene?
Could I get a mover and a seconder, please?
Debbie and Brian.
Moved by Reeve Robinson, second by Councillor Ugly, that council approve application for zoning bylaw amendment file number Z 2020-08 Watt and forward bylaw 2020-10-047 as presented to the bylaw portion of the regular council meeting of the October 20th, 2020 for enactment.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay, with that, Laurie, I guess, could you put Councillor Watt back into the meeting, please? Unless he's left to go home. Just kidding, he's at home.
It's kind of like that new show, eh? The weakest link, you're in and out. Hi, Keith, welcome back. Okay, we've got a motion to adjourn.
Okay, mover and a seconder.
Chris and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Plow, second by Councillor Gauthier, that Council of Township of Laurentian Valley hereby declare the public meeting of October 20th, 2020 be adjourned at 7 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Down to business. That's Charlene. The OPP annual billing statement.
Yes, I just wanted to give council a heads up with regards to the 2021 budgeted amount for the OPP. I went through the 2019 calls to see where we've increased. We've increased the total calls for service from 1,356 in 2018 to 1,504 in 2019. And that is largely in relation to the operational 2 category, which is the largest increase. And that's all with regards to the 911 calls. So that's the dropped calls, the hang up or pocket dials, which increased from 165 to 371.
Wow.
So I think maybe, I know there was an initiative years ago where people, I think the police group, the committee went around Walmart and put on flyers on the cars to say, you know, lock it or lose it. Maybe we need to do a media campaign with regards to the 911 calls through our Facebook page as well as our township page. I don't know, because that's a huge increase, and they have to go out to those calls to find out what's going on. And that's associated with a lot of dollars to us. So you'll see here on the OPP budget per household, where we go for 2020, even though our dollar value is going down by about $2 per household, our increase for the services, the calls for service, has increased about $4. So, and our base cost has gone down. So it's really what's driving our costs up is your calls for service, which has increased over the years. And you'll see that the base back in 2015 was $200.91, and now we're down to $177.48 moving into 2021. However, our calls for service have gone from 125 up to 148 in that time period as well. So there's something that we need to do or can do perhaps, especially with that category, the operational 2. I also snipped out the calls for service work groups, just the totals, so council can have it right directly in the report. But the full report is attached for your viewing as well. Financial implications are total estimated cost of $1.3 million, almost 1.4. It will be budgeted for 2021. And this includes the 2019 year-end adjustment of an increase of $10,274. So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention as well. That it would have gone down quite, a little bit if we didn't have that year-end adjustment. So the last 2 years we've had an increase rather than a refund to our billing cycle.
Thanks, Charlene. Questions? Debbie?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Charlene, are you aware of other municipalities in the county of Vancouver also having an increase in their 911 calls? Because that would sort of be an interesting statistic to know whether or not it's unique to Laurentian Valley or across the board.
I'm not aware. Let's just see. Province. It doesn't really say, like, give us that information. I don't know how we can gather that information. If we publish it, this information is public if we publish it, but not all municipalities publish their stats. So I don't know, maybe through the police chair, that the one that, is it Councillor Gauthier is responsible for the OPP? Yes. Perhaps she can find out if there's any information forthcoming from the OPP themselves.
If I may, as supplementary, I would think a phone call to the other 16 municipalities might give us that information as well. And what I'm thinking of, if it's a uniform issue that we're all facing, maybe more of a coherent effort around some kind of information blitz and education would be helpful for all of us.
I know we did try that with the fire calls in the spring, and I only had uptakes from about, I think it was 9 municipalities, and we did 1 round of media blitz on the radio, and then we billed out because we coordinated that. But certainly I can send out an email, which would be easier than a phone call for me, yep, to all those municipalities and see if the other ones have increased at all. I can check.
Sorry, that was my age showing when I said telephone call.
That's okay.
Electronic way.
Alan, please.
So I would agree that we need to do something to get the word out about the 911 calls, pushing our costs up. But I also think we need to get out what a municipality the size of Laurentian Valley is actually paying per year in OPP costing. I think a lot of our residents would be shocked as to what our costs are actually in a year. So both of those, I think, really need to get out to our residents.
Right.
Keith?
Just wanted to say I support very much what Alan just said. Communication is very important. Anytime I get something from Public Works on transportation costs, road building, whatever, you quote the dollar amount to them and it opens up their eyes. It's something they really understand. So even on this 911 call, the number of calls that have increased, we could even put a price tag on that. That type of communication, I think, would go a lot further than just saying their calls have increased type thing. And I'm not suggesting that's what we are going to do, but I think it really hits home with the residents.
Okay, I think the consensus is then we should put it out to the public what we are paying per year. And I think, Jennifer, if you can work with your group as well as to how we can get that out there through the OPP. And Charlene, you can send out your emails as well.
I think one of the things just to add, I think this year, because of where we're heading and with budget coming up, certainly at budget time, it's probably a good time that we wanted to get a little bit better on showing what the costs of our budgets are in different sections to the residents. And certainly that could be a good avenue to broadcast that kind of cost, because it, like you said, Councillor Wren, it's a significant amount of our budget. So people need to know that.
Yeah, for every dollar a municipal tax dollar is, it's 13 cents for OPPs. And that's from our 2020 budget.
Okay, Jennifer?
To be fair, getting this email or getting our agenda notes is the first time that I've seen this. It wasn't even emailed to me before this.
Okay.
No, it was directly
Normally
emailed.
Sorry.
This wasn't a normal report from the staff sergeant or the commander of the OPP. This is from the province itself, from the OPP, that sends it every year to us for the actual budget. I don't know that it ever comes directly to you, Councillor Keel.
Well, they do statistics. There's usually a statistic report, I think.
Which I haven't received in a while.
Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'll reach out to Stefan tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charlene, our OPP is not broken down on our tax bills, are they?
No, it's not.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on this? Okay. Review of township policies. Charlene?
Okay, so these policies, the procurement, the vendor disqualification, and the disposition of surplus vehicles is coming back, and the employee discipline is new. Currently, we have none, and that's why there is no, markouts. We don't have this one, but feel that it's necessary. Which one do you want me to start with first? The procurement, all the other three you've seen before, so I don't know if there's any further questions with regards to those.
Brian, then Debbie.
Just one thing on the disposition of surplus vehicles.
Yes.
On page 2, I think it is, near item G.
Okay.
Second last word, it says the township and purchasers must be made
aware. Yep.
Should be
aware. Thank you.
And Debbie, you had a comment, question? Oh, you're muted, Deb.
Sorry, I'm using two screens here, so you have to bear with me. So the procurement policy, and it's just a wording actually. So 9.1, it talks about award considerations. And it says, in addition to total purchase price, consideration may be given to the following in determining the lowest responsible bidder. Should that just say in determining the successful bidder?
Good. You'd prefer that wording?
Personally, yes.
Okay.
Get her changed, Charlene.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Charlene.
Okay, so then we go down to the discipline. So this is a fairly short discipline policy. I know the County of Renfrew has a longer one where they give some examples of what a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 is. In the policy book that I'm using, that is from a lawyer that teaches an HR course that I did take a number of years, and this is from the Canada Law Book. They have two, so they have the short one and they have the long one. Either one is sufficient. The one thing that I do have a problem with is that with the longer one is if you get into determining and giving an example of level 1, 2, and 3, if that example is not there, because of our staff are very wanting to know exactly, if we don't address it as an example, then they're going to think that that is not a level 1 or level 2 or level 3. I just think for purposes, we can use both the county and the long version of this one in the Canada Law book policy book for examples so that it can guide the CAO or designate with regards to determining what level that should be, but to outline every specific offense becomes onerous, and there will always be one that's not there, and then there'll be an argument as to whether it should be there and what level it should be, and it'll be a big discussion. So I'm comfortable. This has also gone to Mark and Dean as well, and we feel that this might be the best way of dealing with it. We'll use the other documents as a guide and move forward with this one. At least we have a discipline policy. They're saying that if you don't have a discipline policy in Ontario, then your discipline may not stand if fought against, sort of thing.
Alan, please.
Muted.
I would agree with you, Charlene. The shorter ones are always the better ones. The more you put in those, the more it muddies the water. And if somebody has an issue with the discipline, you're going to wind up dealing with the Board of Labor anyway. So the shorter, the better, the more clear and concise and to the point, you're better off.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that, Debbie?
Thank you. And I'm going to take actually the opposite approach to that. I don't find this a very fulsome policy. You know, when we're talking about minor offenses or more serious offenses of a minor nature, the level of offense will be determined by the CAO and designate. I don't know what a minor offense is. I don't know what a serious offense is. I don't know what the criteria is. I think this is very subjective, and so I'm very uncomfortable with that. Also, on number 4, it talks about the type of discipline we will impose, and I don't know who the royal we are. So I guess I'm taking a different approach. I would rather a more fulsome policy.
Well, I think maybe just if I could comment, I think we discussed that too, Reeve Robinson. I think the issue, I mean, as Charlene mentioned, the examples are there. They're not, and you're not going to be able to identify all the examples. This year, obviously, we're going to probably refer, if becomes, I mean, discipline is always a situation where, first of all, you know, there's kind of a warning. And I mean, we know the normal structured warning, a verbal warning, a written warning, and then, you know, a suspension and then termination. But we always, in the case where we had the lengthier one where I was in the past, it always brought up discussion because they weren't always identified, and you were going to get a legal opinion anyway, a lot of times to make sure that you weren't going at the top, like overboard, I guess is the answer. But so I think in this case, it allows us to kind of have that discussion at the time. Obviously, there's going to be a recourse for the employee too, probably, at which point we're going to probably be asking for some expert professional help anyway when gathering the information to be able to do it. This just puts it in place, and it seemed to be the better choice for us at this point.
Dean, I have a bit of Charlene, I again have a bit of an issue with the we part. Are we talking municipality? Are we talking supervisor? Maybe the we could be explained.
To the CAO, or or designate, CAO or designate, or I can change it to the township.
Well, Debbie or Alan?
So I'm not, that's why I'm not clear who we're talking about with this policy. So if it's progressive discipline, does that occur with the CAO or designate, or does it occur with the manager of the employee? Like, I just find there's too many unanswered questions in this policy. So I will be voting against it.
So the level of offense will be determined by the CAO or designate. So as, obviously if the CAO is not available, then the deputy CAO, which is myself, who is also the HR coordinator, will, obviously try to get a hold of the CAO or the mayor if he's not available to determine what sort of discipline that is. We've already used this discipline notice in the past, even though we didn't have a discipline policy. So that discipline form is the same discipline form in the long version or the short version in the policy handbook from the Canada Law Book. This is exactly out of the Canada Law Book, and it's fine. Like the short or the long version is fine. They're stating that because they give a little bit of synopsis of it. The only thing that we added was the level of offense will be determined by the CAO or designate. That's the only words that were changed, and we didn't pop out in Dean or Mark or myself's review.
Just, Ben, I can add that designate can also be the supervisor. I don't think it was meant to be, my designate could be if I decide that the designate is, in Mark's case, there's one of his staff or Laurie's staff member, then they certainly can take it as well.
Alan, you had another comment?
Yeah, so it all should start with the employee's immediate supervisor is where it all should start. And then it goes through progressive discipline. And there's a certain process that needs to be followed for progressive discipline. I've been through it on a number of occasions, okay? And I can tell you that if you don't follow all the steps that are in progressive discipline, dot all your I's, cross all your T's, okay? You're never going to get anywhere with any type of suspension or termination. You're going to be challenged. You better have all your ducks in a row when you're doing it today, because employees today will walk out of the office and their next call is to the Ontario Board of Labor, and they're going to come back and they're going to want to see, what did you do? We want to see the entire process, and you better follow the progressive discipline in order, or that employee is sitting in the office the next day.
Okay, so what's council's wishes? Should you come back, Charlene, with the long form and we could have a look at both?
Sure.
We don't really need to pass this tonight, do we?
No.
Like an avenue to perform discipline. Without it, we have none. We have no ability to do discipline legally, and that's the only issue.
Debbie?
Well, I'm sure that we've had some way of working with our employees when there's issues, because we're not just a new municipality as of today. So we must have been using some policy or some, procedure or tradition or whatever you want to call it. So, I'm really surprised that we don't have a discipline policy. But again, if you're looking for it, I'm prepared to table it to the next committee meeting if I need a seconder, obviously.
Jennifer?
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, information items, Dean, do we need to go through those or?
Should we be passing the other three with?
Yeah, I'm going to just give me.
Sorry.
With the changes noted, I'll make those changes so that they reflect properly in the actual policy.
Okay, so maybe we'll start with the other three if I could get them mover and a seconder.
Keith and Jennifer. Debbie, you have a comment before Dean?
So yes, because we didn't vote on the motion to table. So I don't know if the motion, if you want me instead to make a motion to separate the discipline policy from the other report, so you can pass it all together or how you would like to do it. But
I think I'm just going to pull out, I had a separate motion for discipline, so I'm going to just pull it out and put it as tabled.
we haven't voted to have it tabled.
No, I was going to do the other three first, then do the table. So council, moved by Councillor Watts, second by Councillor Goche, that council approves the following policies as amended. FIN 13 procurement policy, FIN 14 vendor disqualification policy, FIN 15 disposition of surplus vehicles and equipment policy.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, and the second one I have would be moved by Reed Robinson, second by Councillor Gauthier, that HR discipline policy be tabled to the following November. And I just was waiting for the November date. Does anybody have it? To the
3rd, I think.
November 3rd date. Okay.
Yes.
So November 3rd committee and council meeting.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, and their information items, anything you want to pick out, Dean, or any questions?
No, not that I had, unless anybody had any comments. They're all fairly high level information items, but if anybody wanted to comment or questions.
Okay.
Or
Down the Public Works, and we have a report on Timberline Furnace.
Yes, this report is looking for council approval to purchase a new propane furnace for the Timberline Snowmobile Club building. The township has recently assumed possession and responsibility for the Timberline Clubhouse. The building was inspected by the township insurance provider's risk inspector last week on October 14th. The inspector did note that the building is in relatively good condition, but did note that the existing oil burning furnace and tank needed to be replaced. The oil fuel tank had previously expired and was flagged by the furnace oil provider that the Timberline was using, and noted that it could no longer be filled. And the furnace has also reached the end of its useful life, being approximately 30 years old. It is suggested that a new propane furnace be installed, and as well the extension of the existing ductwork into the bar and washroom area, which currently the bar area does not have a heat source, and the washroom areas are only heated right now by electric baseboards. There is a report coming to council in the near future on the proposed use for the building, including operating costs, but staff felt that it was time sensitive and needed to be addressed sooner than later as we approach the winter season. The Timberline Clubhouse volunteers had previously relied on a wood stove as the primary heat source, but that won't be feasible for the upcoming winter season. It is anticipated that the furnace and ductwork would cost approximately $10,000. The funding for this will be reviewed at the end of the year and may be taken out of recreation reserves if needed.
Questions of council or comments? Chris, please.
Hi, Mark. I'm in favor of your motion. Just a couple questions. Are you going to do like a quick response tender or something because of the time of year? And I'm assuming that the hot water is electric or oil, so maybe you want to look at a on-demand hot water heater because it's mostly just going to be hand washing and a few dishes maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So we have to do something to get some tenders out and back fairly quickly. And the hot water tank is electric right now. So it is in the opposite end of the building for the furnaces, but maybe that's something we can look at as an add-on for an on-demand. I do know there is a switch, and the club typically turns the hot water tank off when they're not there, and then turns it back on typically for weekends. But that is something we can look at.
And just sorry, follow up. So obviously you're familiar with it from the Shady Nut Rink, but the main cost of that whole thing is going to be the gas fitter. So when he's already there doing your furnace, and then just the physical size of the tankless, move it down by your furnace and just run the hot water lines back to wherever you need them.
Okay.
Just just a suggestion. Maybe ask as a rider top up price or something.
Sure. Okay.
Alan, please.
So just when you're looking at a tankless hot water heater, you want to make sure that you get a water test. I know we were looking at putting one in here, and because of our hardness of our water, they wouldn't do it. It won't last with hard water, and if the water out there is hard, a tank this probably wouldn't work. You'd have to go with a regular propane hot water tank. Number two, good luck getting a furnace put in. We're waiting at the airport since, I guess, about the first week of September for installation of a furnace at our hangar, and might be starting to work on it the 1st of November.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's an issue we're having with all construction contractors right now. It's hard to find, and materials have either doubled or tripled in price, which is greatly affecting a lot right now in our community.
Absolutely. Any other questions? There's some, we need a mover and seconder, Dean?
Yes, please.
Keith and Brian?
Moved by Councillor Watt, second by Councillor Ugly, that council approves the purchase of a new propane fireplace, or propane furnace, sorry, for the Timberline Clubhouse building.
Seniors moment, Dean.
Yeah,
all in favor? Oh, just a minute. Any further discussion?
Well, Alan.
So did you want to add something about the hot water tank in there too? Because I agree with Chris that you probably should go with a propane hot water tank when you're at it.
We can certainly add it to the motion.
But we put a dollar figure on that, or
how do we say how old the other one was, Mark, or do you know what?
No, I hadn't asked, but I'd have to ask if it has been replaced or not. But it could be, it could be quite old. It might have been there. It has been there for quite a few years. So I'd have to ask the question to confirm.
Chris?
I would assume it's old, but Mark can sell it off and recoup those costs anyway. And now to your hardness thing, I put them in hard and soft, and no real issues. Most people will get a softener anyway, but I mean, just straight hard water, they seem like they're still going. They're 10, 12 years old. So just a follow up.
They wouldn't put it in here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe just the contractor or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've added the as well, a new propane furnace as well as a hot water tank.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Sorry, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. It's just once you got the propane, it's nice. Like that fireplace may even change over someday. The cooking equipment, there's just a lot of options that you can have once you have it there.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Dean, bylaws.
Okay, seeing that we do have conflict on the second one, we have split the bylaw portion. In this case, we have two separate motions. So I'm going to start with the Shimmons one. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the bylaws.
Debbie Nell.
So moved by Reeve Robinson, second by Councillor Wren. The following bylaws be enacted, pass, and be read a first, second, and third time, and be numbered and signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in this bylaw book this 20th day of October 2020. Bylaw 2020-045-0202002. Official Plan Amendment OPA 15, Shimmons, and Bylaw 2020-10-046, Z 2020-09, Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Shimmons.
All in favor? Carried.
Now for the second portion, I'm going to ask that, Lori, that you remove Councillor Watt. I don't know if Councillor Watt is leaving for the evening now or not, but we'll, if he is, we'll say goodnight. But anyway, just confirm that he's left, please.
I confirm that Councillor Watt has been put on hold and is not participating in this part of the meeting.
Thank you. And looking for a mover and a seconder.
Brian and Chris.
Moved by Councillor Ugly, second by Councillor Plow, that the following bylaw be enacted. pass and be read a first, second, third time and be numbered and signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and be engrossed in this bylaw book this 20th day of October 2020, bylaw 2020-10-047, Z 2020-08, rezoning Watt.
All in favor? Carried.
I guess with that, I'm going to ask Laurie to see if Councillor Watt has left the meeting or does he want back in?
Councillor Watt is no longer a panelist in the meeting. He's left the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Please make the minutes note that Councillor Watt left the meeting at 7:30. Looking for a note and file, a mover and a seconder.
Just acting council comments.
Oh, sorry, missed that. Okay, my fault.
Usually I miss it, so
Yeah, yeah, I was jumping.
Debbie and then Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking for some clarification around conflict of interest and how we're dealing with Zoom. So if we were in council chambers right now and a councillor declared a conflict, they would not be required to leave the room. That would be their choice, but they would not be required to leave the room. So I'm just wondering, is this at the request of Councillor Watt that he was removed, or is this if this is some kind of procedure we are implementing? I think we need a policy on it, and I would question its validity.
Well, I think, Reeve Robinson, the idea of a councillor declaring conflict, the normal protocol is to leave the room. There should be no sitting in the room and influence. If there's any kind of influence, if the person is caught influencing at all, then there can be some serious repercussions with that. So the best way, what we're always taught in any session, is that the best way for the member is to leave the room if he or she can. So that's what we did in this case. We asked Councillor Watt. He declared, he wanted to declare obviously conflict in those two items. So in this case, because of Zoom, it was felt that putting him on hold outside the meeting, not hearing the discussion and not being, in Zoom, it's a little different because if you're not there to see your face, then you're not influencing, but the fear is the influence. Even though, because what happens is, even if the person is in the room, they're hearing the discussion, and it's not always a free discussion if the member is sitting in the room.
Just supplementary, under the Municipal Act, I do not believe that anyone is required to leave the room. Certainly that is your choice as a councillor, and that would be a choice that each one of us could make. But I don't believe that if I have to declare a conflict that I actually have to leave the room. Absolutely. If I'm doing something that is influencing, there's repercussions for that. But I'm just asking, perhaps we could look into it, because I really don't believe that he has to.
Okay, Jennifer and then Alan.
Just from experience, whenever my parents were building the storage units beside my house, I had to declare it and I had to leave the room. And I'm thinking that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I thought this was always protocol.
Okay, Alan. Thanks,
so
Jennifer.
I can tell you that I did get a legal opinion on this. Okay, and Debbie is 100% correct. Okay, the councillor does not have to leave the meeting, but what I was told is you're better off to leave the meeting, because if, for example, I'm the one with the conflict, okay, or possible conflict, and just sitting there, some other councillor doesn't want to say something because I'm going to hear it, I have now influenced the decision. And after the meeting, that councillor could go and say, with him in the room, I couldn't say what I wanted to say, and he influenced the decision, and I could be found that I was influencing the decision. And the lawyer had told me, you're best as a councillor, if you have a possible pecuniary interest, to physically leave so that there's no possible way that you are influencing anybody making the decisions around the table.
Yes, Laurie.
And I guess just one point to add. So the other thing is with this situation and with the past situation with former Councillor Gauthier as well, they were actually the owners and applicants of a file that was a zoning bylaw amendment to be passed. And so the other thing was in their interest as well to not provide any exposures for appeals before the local planning appeal tribunal that might have clouded it. That was another reason why.
Okay, Debbie?
And just final, so all I'm saying is that we need to be clear that it's up to each counselor whether or not they leave the session. They do not have to leave the session, as Alan said. You know, many of us would choose to, but he does not have to. And that's all I was trying to get clarification. Was this his decision or was he being directed to? And if that's the case, that's not correct.
Okay. So Dean, you can just verify, Chris?
This is a new subject, is that all right?
Yes.
Not to put too much pressure onto our staff or anything, Mr. Bennett, but still looking for a report on the ways we're going to find efficiencies and also on our strategic planning goals and an update on how that's coming along. So I know we dealt with flooding and then COVID and then a tornado. So maybe sometime before the end of the year, we could have an update on how those are coming along.
Yeah, that's our anticipation. Thanks. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Just a reminder to Brian and Chris, we have a rec meeting with the city of Pembroke next Tuesday. I believe the agenda will be coming out by the end of the week. I haven't heard, but both of you can attend. Yes. Okay, good. Anything else? Then you also got notification of the water and sewer as well. And maybe I can bring you up to date, sorry, on that one, is that the original meeting with the engineer will be on his report that he gave to the city of Pembroke. There will be a second meeting within the week, which will be with the negotiating committee of the city of Pembroke and Laurentian Valley. But the balance of our council will be able to sit in on that as attendees to hear what the dollar figures are. If you remember, I did ask and reported that it would all happen the same night, but the city wanted to do it on separate nights. So I just want to give you an update on that as well. If there's any questions to that. Debbie?
I saw the email back and forth. So do we have a definite date and time for these meetings?
Sorry, I was just going to ask, I did send the letter from the city to all of you, or did I not? I thought I did. Yeah, I did. Which has the 2 dates, and that is confirmed, the 2 dates, and I can, I guess I could have, I'm not sure if I have them in my calendar or not yet, but city presentation are on the 23rd at 6 p.m. for the 23rd at 6 p.m. for the presentation with the consultant, and then the first agreement is going to be in the afternoon at 2 p.m. on the 30th. And I believe
October?
November.
Sorry, no, yeah, I didn't say November. And I believe that it will be virtual, but that has not been confirmed yet. I think we're going to get the details of that, but those are the 2 times. So just dates and times.
Sorry, I'm guessing I'm slow. So the 23rd and the 30th, what was the time?
6 on the 23rd and 2 on the 30th.
Maybe you could resend that email to Gene at some point.
The email was sent, Debbie, on the 16th
of October.
Yeah.
Basically, it was an attachment. It was a letter of attachment, basically stating it.
10:39 a.m. Yeah, sent 2.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I apologize. I must have missed it, but I've got it now.
Good. Anything else for council comments? Okay. Dean.
Note and file. Motion.
Note and file. Alan and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gauthier, that any items not specifically addressed by motion of council in the regular meeting of October 20th, 2020 be noted and filed accordingly.
All in favor? Carried.
Confirmatory bylaw, mover and a seconder.
Brian? Jennifer?
Moved by Councillor Ugly, second by Councillor Gauthier. That be resolved that Council of Township of Laurentian Valley approves confirmatory bylaw 2020-10-048 as having been introduced, read a first, second, and third time, and the said bylaw be numbered and signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation this 20th day of October 2020.
All in favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Mover and a seconder, please.
Alan and Chris.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Plow, that the regular council meeting of October 2020 be adjourned at 7:40.
All in favor? Carried. Thanks, folks. Stay safe.